The top 3 stories of the week.
Welcome back to All That Jam and the top 3 stories of the week. I'm joined by Amanda, as always, and we are coming off of Goose's biggest weekend ever from the best that I can see. A couple huge shows, biggest numbers they've ever had. How are you doing this week, Amanda?
Hey, Kevin. I am doing great. Got a little summer cold, but it's not stopping me. I have definitely been following all things Goose as well. Have a lot of friends that have been on tour. And yeah, by all accounts, this has been just a set of absolute ragers for them.
I'm loving it. I actually almost made it through a whole show last night. The song Rockdale that they did had a very interesting jam, something that I actually perked up and was like, oh, this isn't what we're normally getting. So I'm glad to see that they're pushing it a little. Be interesting. I feel like the new drummer really stepped up, and I feel like, as always, when you throw a new joker in the deck, it reinvigorates the rest of the band.
Yes, absolutely. And, sometimes that can really just make a lot of things possible for one reason or another. I know a few weeks ago we were talking about the 2 shows that I saw out here in Denver and how impressed I was. I think in general, there seems to be a bit of a launch pad now for trying some different things. And we know this is a band that has always been comfortable with taking a song and completely switching up the tempo or other things, So I think that that they'll be able to do some really creative stuff, and I'm here for it. I'm happy for them.
Yeah, they're off till September. Bunch of dates then, so time to get on board. Time to do your homework and be up to speed when they hit the road again.
That's right. Although, you know what, Kevin, in true internet fashion, jam band fan fashion, I have to say, those out there that are not on board are still very, very happy to let the rest of us know that they're not on board. So they can just have at it. It's almost become laughable to me at this point.
Right. And I guess we're going to jump into the top 3 stories. Maybe I can throw out something that I know you're going to talk about. I may be out of order on you, but somebody else decided that they're going to tour the rest of this year, and it just isn't, they can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start there, actually, I think. I think that's definitely pertinent. So as we know, Dopapod has been such a force in the jam band scene now for a very long time. Friends of the show, Chuck and Neil, have been on the show. Neil multiple times, just recently. They have announced that they're going to go on what they're calling an indefinite hiatus beginning next year in 2025. And that announcement came alongside news of some tour dates that are going to run through November, with many more to be announced. So that just came out, I think, in terms of that announcement about a week ago, maybe a little bit longer, with a pretty, I think, pretty lengthy message. And so I guess first, Kevin, this is a band that's been around in total for 16 years. They have also taken some breaks, I think 18 to 19, right before COVID, actually. What are your thoughts on how they wrote this? What's happening there?
It seems on its face very honest, that, it isn't some weird internal thing. I think 4 of them probably sat down together and said, we're out here busting our asses. We're barely, making what it is to keep the thing afloat, maybe even not being able to. They went to all the trouble with that double album and, the one before that, the beautiful packaging, but it just, there isn't I don't know. They just never caught the larger imagination, maybe is what it is, like Goose has, and at what point does it become, if I stay home, I can play, like Colin from the John T. When the John T's not touring, he's always playing. And the John T doesn't ever do these long tours anymore because I think they realize we get some festival sets, we stay close to home, we play shows, we can do this, and it can keep a roof over our head, as opposed to, let's try to make a little more money than just putting a roof over our head, but it's going to take its toll in all these other ways.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, and this is a band, as we all know, who tours harder than most others, if not almost any other band that I can think of. Their tour dates, typically don't fit on, an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. They are out there. So they have put in their time and then some. But you know what? I think you're right. For a band like Dopapod, when I say unique sound, and I think the word unique gets misused or overused, but truly Dopapod is a niche. They have like that heavy prog rock thing going on, improv, acid jazz, but then they throw hip hop stuff in there. They love video games. That sound, for people who love them, and there's so many, really love them. I think sometimes it might just be a little bit harder to make that next jump, like you mentioned about Goose. Let's face it. I mean, Goose is great. They're also very easy to listen to. They're not going to challenge you as a fan, musically, to go to a show. You can really just absorb it, and it's like instantly identifiable, right?
Yep. That's definitely interesting. And then, this year we lost Twiddle. I think we'll continue to see this trend, and it's the younger band. It's the Disco or the Squeaky Feet or somebody who are young and hungry, who are willing to go out and, give their lives to rock and roll, so to speak, and do this in hopes of catching on and becoming, maybe even a widespread. We could play theaters 7 times a year and hit Red Rocks, kind of thing. You don't necessarily have to be selling out the man. But,
that's right.
but you have to do better than 2,000 seat places that might only have 1,300 in them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's been such a consistent thing for them, but you've got to play a lot of shows, right, to be able to really keep things moving. Plus, we know this about Neil, and it's true for the rest of the band. Everybody has other things that they might be working on as well. And who knows what else might be kind of percolating. So I think that for artists that are that kind of connected to the scene and their art, what they do, I am very curious and excited to see what else might pop up from any of them, as they have a little bit of time starting next year to really maybe breathe and think about what their like individual next moves would be.
There you go. I know Chuck has other things, and Eli, his name pops up with it's not Jalbatross. Who is it with? One of the guys from Lotus.
Yes, it's not Octopad, is it? I'm having a moment. There's so many really great bands and side projects that aren't even side projects, that are legitimate bands in their own right. We need like a jam band family tree or something to help keep track of all this, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, obviously wish them well. I know we'll be hearing from them again. And like you said, I would absolutely imagine and really hope that there would be those opportunities to see them still play, here and there. And people would love that. People would be very happy. So taking that news, let's move on a little bit to maybe what is the latest or another chapter in the saga of artificial intelligence in the music industry. This is something that we have touched on in different ways over the last year. But, there's going to be more and more of these stories. And occasionally one does catch my eye that I think is worth talking about. Just a few days ago, this was in the Hollywood Reporter, but I've seen it mentioned elsewhere. There was a story about various record labels countering a few different AI companies, which we'll talk about, with $350 million in lawsuits. So pretty assertive. I think this is, at this point, kind of the largest set of lawsuits, at least currently, that we're starting to see come out of what's becoming a pretty contentious situation between labels and others who are suing over copyright infringement, and then these artificial intelligence companies. And so I thought we could just talk for a minute about this because, Kevin, this is definitely, not going to go away anytime soon.
Right. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, I guess, in this situation.
That's right. Well, and in this case, you actually see companies from the music industry working together to bring
Right.
these claims that are urgently trying to block various AI firms from profiting off of alleged infringement of intellectual property. So yeah, it was just last week when these different record labels sued 2 AI startups. And these startups have tools that allow anyone to make music based on existing songs. And so the lawsuits were filed in New York and Massachusetts, led by Universal Music Group, Sony, and Warner Music. So big, big shots, right, in the industry. They are accusing Suno AI and Uncharted Labs, who is the developer of another AI, of illegally powering their systems on huge, huge bounties of copyrighted recordings. And they want an injunction to basically cease and desist, destroy the models, and then they're seeking damages of $350 million. So I guess, Kevin, for me, number one, I'm starting to realize how many AI firms and startups must be out there now, because I had not heard of either one of those before.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they're all over. Well, the Beatles. Okay, the Beatles put out "I Want to Hold Your Hand," and all of a sudden, every song that came out sounded like a Beatles song. So how is Beyonce, this AI thing, taking Beyonce and making a song that sounds like a Beyonce song any different than what songwriters did back in 1963?
Mm-hmm. Well, exactly. And I think this is going to be one of those pivot points for whatever happens in the future with this, because yeah, one of the executives from the AI firm said, you know what, we are transforming, we are generating something completely new. We're not regurgitating content that already exists. He said, we don't allow users to reference specific artists. And then he threw a little dig in. He said, we'd be happy to chat with these corporate record labels. And we tried to, but instead of wanting to work together with us, they sued us. And so that's another part of this too, Kevin, is, the kind of traditional model for big corporate giants is to do exactly what they're doing, right? Put an injunction out there, can't do your work, and here's a boatload of money that we're going to try to sue you for. But it's like whack-a-mole, I would imagine, at least until...
Didn't we learn that they know that there are programs and algorithms that exist to write hit songs? Like the whole thing with Spotify, you have to have the chorus within the first 15 seconds in order to catch the listener. How is what AI doing any different? They're saying you can't use these models and you can't use this stuff to create something new, but we have these rules anyway that we run by.
Yep. Well, exactly. And I think that what we saw ultimately, if there's any winner, right, in that streaming music era, and there are winners for sure, we're able to work a little more cooperatively with some of the bigger artists to license music in a certain way. This is going to require, I think, even more creativity. And I'm just not sure that at this point in time, these big labels, it's kind of like, I don't know, like the energy industry, right? Like big oil and coal and your, renewables. Like at some point things are going to tip, and it's not going to be possible anymore to just avoid and try to fight against something. You're going to have to, at some point, relax a little bit on that and then say, all right, well, we can't get rid of this, whatever it is. Maybe we need to figure out how we're going to bring it into what we do, or at least be able to coexist. But that's definitely not where things are right now.
We're expanding on your energy metaphor there. The oil companies, knowing that they have a dying model and they're just fighting against what the inevitable is, solar in this case, or wind.
Mm-hmm.
The record companies are fighting against the inevitable that AI exists. They're not going to stop it. They can throw up as many lawsuits and barricades as they want. There are 1,000 basements across this country right now developing the next AI thing.
Yep, absolutely. And there's more happening too, right? Of course, there's a lawsuit against California-based AI startup, another one, LOVO, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, accusing that company of misappropriating the voices of certain actors, A-list talent like Conan O'Brien. So that's now another,
right.
First of its kind. So, there's this, what's happening is now you're getting this like big chasm, even more so between creators and then companies. It's something that at some point is, well, one of two things is going to happen, right? We're going to see all these lawsuits and it's going to just be a complete mess of red tape for a long time. Or one of those bigger corporate entities will have someone in their higher, cabinet level position who says, maybe we should try to figure something out and get creative. But that is such a departure from everything that they know. And these record labels have been probably holding on for a long time anyway to stay relevant. And so in general, yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're scared of this.
It's a question of who owns the product, huh?
That's right. And I deal with this in my day-to-day job, which I will not get into here, but in terms of data and who owns data, you would think it's so clear-cut, but that is not always the case. And I think that's a big part of this as well, to your point. So we'll see. Definitely keeping an eye on this. These stories keep popping up. And this one will be interesting because of how Suno and Uncharted Labs are structured, how their product actually works. These startups could actually have a play to make here for what they do and how they do it. I think they seem to be pretty smart about how kind of getting right up to that line of maybe copyright infringement, but maybe not exactly all the way there. So we'll see. We'll see how that one goes. All right. So Kevin, let's get into this third story. This one, honestly, when I saw it, it made me think of you because this is something that comes up sometimes when we're talking to artists or, having our interviews. And this is an article. Here's the title. It's called Music Business because it's music and it's a business. And basically, this was a story about why music is a product and probably should be thought of that more clearly by most artists. So first, Kevin, before we even maybe get into this, but this comes up sometimes when we're talking to folks, and you always make a really good point about, when we talk about music, we're really talking about content, right? That's something that I know you think about.
Well, I think my biggest thing with the way this article is framed is they're conflating product and content. And I think that they are two completely different things because product implies a physical thing. You bought an album, you bought a product. Content you consume and you don't necessarily pay for.
Which would have been a little bit different before, I guess, the interwebs, right? Although it's hard, we really can't even go back that far necessarily. Right. They probably
you were content, maybe you were content if you were trying to be played on the radio, but generally what record companies sold was a product. They were trying to sell music. They cared what the music sounded like because they wanted people to buy it. Now that something like Spotify sells subscriptions, they could care less what the music is as long as someone's check clears every month.
Yeah. Well, and content too also gets ad revenue. It gets maybe more slightly intangible returns. So, I think part of the challenge is those two words, depending on how any one person looks at them, could be seen as the same thing, similar or very different. And that's probably just due to the fact that there are so many outlets and different ways now that artists share their music and what they're hoping to get out of it. I think of the song itself. So the actual written, production, the piece that's been recorded. And I have to try to separate that in my mind from like an Instagram reel or something like that, because they're different, I think. But this made me really think about a lot of things.
Right. I think he is right, though, that it is the music business. But I think there's a flaw to what his argument is, because I think you have to have two different business models if you're making product versus if you were making content. I think there's a specific mindset for each. We're going to make an album. We're going to go in and make a cohesive, coherent album. We're going to make a 2-minute TikTok. That's a completely different mindset.
Right. Well, that's true. I do feel like we hear a fair number of artists that we talk to describing what is essentially a business model for them, maybe not in those words. I think some artists either have that experience in a maybe more cohesive way, or are just more like-minded where they are going to be thinking about it. I guess in my mind, there's a more philosophical question for me, which is, as an artist, whether you have to or not, but is it fair for an artist to also have to be their own, essentially, business manager until they can afford to pay somebody? And most people can't. So, is that asking too much, or is it simply, like anything else? Listen, you want to do X, Y, or Z career, you need to be aware of what the market is like within that field and how to be successful in that business.
Right. I think bands need somebody, right? I think that they need a manager. They need someone who is going to do what I call the 80% that doesn't make you any money kind of thing. I do not think bands need record companies anymore. I think they need a good studio to partner with, like an Alan Evans or somebody like that, or Color Red out there in Colorado, who are going to help them to get in the studio and do the recording, but they're not going to say, here's 50,000 up front and we own you for the rest of your lives, kind of thing. You're still going to own your product, and then you're going to either market it yourself through Bandcamp or independently press the thing, or you take the finished product and then you bring a record company in and give them 10% for doing the marketing.
Right. Well, it makes sense to me. I should mention also that this article, which I found on ultimateguitar.com. I mean, always trying to look for things that are just a little bit different or unique, or maybe a different take. And so a lot of this opinion and perspective that we're talking about today came from JJ French, who, if I'm thinking
great guy.
Right. Yeah. And he's a manager. And the
guitarist, you're burying the headline.
I'm burying the headline. I know why. You know why? Because for a second I was wondering if I had it wrong. He was the guitarist for Twisted Sister, right?
I think he still is. I think they still go out. And I think that they do the casino kind of thing. Like they'll go and play those kind of places. The Riverboat or something.
Yeah. That's good for them. So, I mean, it's somebody that's been around a long time. I think it does show, though, maybe all three of these stories this week, I try to even think, is there a common thread? I mean, and obviously what we're talking about is just being able to make sense of the current world of the industry. And sometimes making sense of something means taking a step back or to the side, which doesn't have to be a negative, like in the Dopapod story. Sometimes it means maybe taking a really difficult look and re-examining, how you've always done your business for these record companies, which they're not doing yet, but at some point somebody probably will. And then here, we have these keywords that you hear all the time, the content product thing, and, and then what responsibility do artists have to themselves to really kind of be an active part of the business side of the industry? And that's an awful lot, Kevin. It kind of makes you, at least for me, it makes me feel grateful for any band that can put out an album at any time and play any shows, Not easy.
Not easy at all. So you got anything coming up for the 4th?
Not for the 4th, I don't think, but I haven't even had a chance to tell you I am going to the Sphere.
Oh, nice. This weekend?
No, it's going to be next weekend. So I'll be there for the Saturday, July 13th show.
Yay!
Yeah, came up
So cool.
kind of unexpectedly. Very excited. I'm just super pumped to get in there and check it out.
Nice. I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, we're going to have to hear all about that afterwards. I myself am laying low. Fish tour's coming up, so
That's right.
I'm going to what plus we do the after shows, so I'm buckling down getting ready for that because it's going to be a lot of work to do. Whatever it is, 20 shows. Lord.
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a
It
big
is
one for
one.
sure. So much fun though.
Yeah. All right. Like, subscribe, find us on social media, give us a follow. Please comment. Let us know what you think of the channel, what you think of what we're doing. And we will be back next Monday. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. I'll see you soon, Amanda.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everybody.